Okay, so I feel like I have a lot to say. There's a lot I've been thinking lately. This video is, I feel this urge and this inclination to make this video today. It's literally 4 a.m. in the morning. I don't know why I woke up this early, but this has been something I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time now. Not even a very long time. I recently just learned this, right? From a pretty, I won't say traumatic situation, but I would say so far for the past 1 month, I haven't posted in a month now. But personal life, I feel like I've been going through a lot of lessons. I feel like God has been teaching me a lot, and especially in terms of gratitude as well. So that has been something that I've been made clear of or made aware of in a significant way more than ever before. And this is what inspired this video. And it's kind of odd as well. I don't know if I should I'll keep certain details off. Let me just give you some kind of context. In my personal life, so I'm 19. Let me just say in academia, I feel like I've totally flopped in that area, even though I consider myself to be intelligent. Just generally speaking, right off the bat, I do consider myself to be pretty intelligent. I guess you can kind of tell from my videos, which I have to kind of remind myself through this. But there's been specific circumstances and specific experiences that I've had that has kind of made me doubt myself. And so in that area, in that academic part of things, I feel like I kind of flopped in that. And I can look back and kind of spot the mistakes that I made. And I feel like I'm conscious of it, which is kind of crazy because on the day that I did, receive my results or my grades or whatever, I just felt, I felt like I was supposed to feel disappointment in myself. I felt like I was supposed to feel like a failure, but I just didn't, which is odd. It just confirmed a lot of things for me. It confirmed the fact that, yes, I am creative. I feel like it just kind of confirmed a lot of things for me that I am creative, and I just feel like it just kind of redirected me in a way. You know when they say rejection is redirection, that's how I feel. And even for the opportunity that I have right now and the way God has just worked everything through for my favor, despite my situation, despite my circumstances, and the projected destination that I'm meant to be at, and what is projected based on my specific scenario right now, you would think that it's over for me. With my results that just came out, my academic results. I don't want to go into detail personally. I want to keep this aspect of my life private because I'm still navigating the situation and kind of making up theories in my head and really trying to heal from that entire, because it was a 2-year experience. If you live in the UK, you kind of, let me just say that it was just basically my A-level experience. And so it's been really eye-opening for me. And this is why I kind of want to emphasize this, because you might be in the same position, or you might, and I feel like this is a separate topic in itself that I want to talk about when it comes to academia and the correlation it has to your intelligence, your natural intelligence, or the way that kind of just wrecks your self-esteem or lowers your self-esteem in a way when you put in all the hard work and it didn't come out the way you expected it, or you realize that your nervous system or your body reacted in ways that really just disappointed you, or you find out that you cannot go through stressful situations like that and on pressure situations like that, and it kind of sabotaged you in a way, or you just realize that the actions that you were taking or whatever you were doing just didn't work, and you just kind of have to humble yourself a bit and admit that. I feel like that's kind of my situation right now. So that's even a separate topic in itself, but I felt like in that very moment, and this is me talking about just failure in general and failure and the academic aspect of things for me in the position that I'm in right now and what happened to me. I might detail it a little bit more because I don't feel comfortable speaking too much in detail about it, but this is regarding academia and just failure. My first like real tangible experience of like failure, like straight in your face. So yeah, I just want to talk about just the general feeling of realizing that you failed in the side of ego, the aspect of your ego and the aspect of self. So that's what this is revolving around. It's revolving around your ego, yourself, and failure, and the relationship that those three aspects of your life, the relationship that it has between each other. Because I'm a philosophy kind of person, which is crazy because I did study philosophy and I, kind of flopped it too, which is insane. But now I just want to quickly just clear this out, because I'm talking about this from a position of like now knowing what I'm doing and the next step that I'm taking, and being completely grateful to God that he put me in a position where I can try again, at least, or I can prove myself once again, or move forward like everyone else around my age range. So the academic aspect of things. But I just specifically want to talk about what I've learned from this and what I've learned from failure, like real tangible experience of failure where it knocks you in your face, which is why I wanted to kind of describe how I felt when I received the news and when I was aware about my situation. Also kind of like in regards to like the academic parts, and then connecting those things to self, to ego, and self-esteem, okay, in general. That's kind of what I want to connect that to. So bear with me, this would make a lot of sense because I think this is a very common experience. I think it's very understandable because you could talk about failure from a million different perspectives, right? Some people might talk about marriage failure, some people, you know what I'm saying? This is purely from the academic standpoint, and the fact that this is also connected to self and self-esteem as well. And when we're talking about intelligence as well, when we're talking about competence, those type of things relate to self-esteem too. So I think this is something that a lot of us can understand. So I am first of all just gonna talk about realizing that you failed and kind of like accepting that to yourself, and the effect it has on you based on math of realizing this. And first of all, coming to acceptance, and first of all, the shock it does to you, like the emotional responses that you have, the moment of like kind of like acceptance, and then now the moment of like analyzing what actually happened to you and how that affected you, or in what ways that actually affected you. So let's just talk about that based on my kind of like my experience and what I've kind of picked out from this, what I've kind of like gained or experienced. So hearing the news, like having it, first of all, there was a whole bunch of anxiety regarding the situation for me. It was very anxiety inducing for me. I felt like it was a way for me to, I don't know, I kind of just attached my self-worth to it, and also I used it as a means to clarify a lot of things to myself and to validate a lot of things to myself externally, because I always felt like I kind of knew myself internally, and I kind of like knew my potential, but I just wanted it to be validated from all these external things that society has like placed upon us as a metric of your potential. And that was really important to me. So seeing that the input did not match the output, which is kind of crazy. You would think if you put in the hard work, surely you're going to succeed, but that's not always the case. Just because you put in work doesn't mean that you're going to receive the exact results that you want. Life can be unpredictable. This is something that I've kind of learned from this, and failure is kind of inevitable. It's going to happen in some way, shape, or form. Some people have that happen to them in very sensitive situations like relationships and like actual like deeper parts of life. Sometimes it happens in vague ways like academia. I call it vague because you might take that as something personal and something serious, and I do understand that, but for me it was just kind of like external to me. So it wasn't, I don't know, to me it's not really, I've just kind of detached from it, and I've kind of separated those things to me. So I feel kind of great going that way, which is odd to say. Like, you might be like, oh, you failed academically, you should kind of take it seriously. But for me, it was just not. I could easily separate these two things and be easily detached from it. So I feel like I need to backtrack a bit. Let's talk about just like the reaction to failure that you have in general. For me, when I first heard about it, taking into consideration the fact that like you put in the work and it just didn't work, I was humbled a bit. And this is like the humbling aspect of it. Like when I heard about the situation and the fact that I flopped completely academically, to me it was a very humbling moment, because I never, first of all, I never for once doubted my intelligence, just in generally speaking. And at the same time, simultaneously, a bit of technical difficulty. Simultaneously, at the same time, I did think that academic intelligence was a good, it was a good way to gauge how intelligent you were. I did believe in that. I did trust in the process. I did believe in learning, and also learning in a controlled environment as well. I did genuinely believe, and I still do believe to some extent, that it does measure your intelligence in a way. So I did believe that, and I went through the process, and I was hoping, I was expecting the best, at least, because I did put in my best. I know there are some mistakes, and I can kind of look back and spot the mistakes, but I will say that I believed that I did my best. And this is where I feel like I noticed the humbling aspect of it, so I just kind of want to clarify what I do mean by the humbling moment for me. The humbling moment for me in particular was accepting that, yes, although you did your best, it didn't come out the way it was supposed to be. And it was just the humbling moment specifically was the acceptance. But before I talk about the acceptance, I kind of want to talk about like the initial reaction, the initial emotional response to the idea of failure. It might be different for different people. Different people have different responses. Some people might bawl their eyes crying. Some people might feel numb. In my case, in my scenario, I did feel kind of numb, but that was because I kind of had a more decent emotional regulation within myself. So I was able to contemplate more and really just, I was able to think on the spot and really just emotionally regulate. So I didn't it wasn't like I was suppressing a lot, but I didn't kind of like freak out. Which is also very interesting, considering how sensitive I can get sometimes. But in situations like that, I do kind of know how to emotionally regulate. So that was a good thing. But the first initial reaction for me was just thinking, it happened in a very tangible way. You can't deny it. It did happen. This is what it's called. It's called failure. This is what life kind of hands to you and say, this is something that you have to deal with and grow from and learn from your mistakes. Genuinely pick up what was wrong. What did you do wrong? What happened? How can you make sure this doesn't happen again? How can you control your anxiety to make sure that situations like this don't happen again? What went wrong, and how can you kind of like fix the problem to make sure that this doesn't happen again? Is it something that you can fix, or is it something that you kind of have to accept in a way where it's just like, okay, maybe this is biology. Maybe biology comes into play here, and maybe I just kind of need to accept it and try to improve in certain scientifically tested ways that does work to at least improve your intellect by 1%. But I just knew in my situation that was not. Mine was just more about learning from my mistakes, and I knew from then. So my initial first reaction was just feelings of numbness in that situation, where it's like I couldn't freak out, I couldn't cry in that situation. I was just more of like logical, trying to fix the situation in that very moment in time. But now that everything is fixed and like I know what next steps I'm taking, looking back in hindsight, now I actually get to reflect, and I actually kind of get to like accept the feeling of, your ego being struck. And this is where I want to talk about the ego aspect of things, and this can kind of get into a political debate, where it's like, does your academic performance accurately predict your natural intelligence? But we're not going to go into that debate. We're just going to talk about the ego aspect of things and where that kind of links. So there's an aspect of when reality strikes you, and when you have to accept reality, and you have to accept like real situation, and you have to look at what happened to you face value and say, this right here, this situation right here is exactly what failure means, and that's exactly what it feels like. And seeing it for yourself, like tangibly in reality and experiencing that, does something to your ego, because the entire point of making sure that you succeed, the entire point of making sure that you get over a tough situation, the entire point of making sure that you achieve academically is to fulfill a part of your ego that craves accolades, that craves praises from people in society, from people around you, that craves validation. There's an aspect of your ego that wants to align with validation. And then when you do everything, your ability to make sure that you prepare for that and to make sure that that's a reality, that your ego is on a high level. And when you do everything to prepare for that, to make sure that that becomes a reality, and when that doesn't happen, that knocks you down a peg. And this is where it links to self, where it's like you have your self-esteem dependent on whether your ego gets stroked or not by certain external circumstances and certain standards that you have to meet, whether it's a high standard or not, whether it's a difficult thing or not. You kind of just want to get over it and want to make sure that you achieve, right? I feel like your self, like the aspect of self and your identity and your self-esteem, is closely tied to your ego. And so once that gets knocked down a peg, this is definitely going to suffer. You're going to have like a lowered self-esteem, right? But one odd thing that I just realized in my situation right now is that I didn't let that affect my, since I just feel like I don't really attach my self-esteem in general to these like validating things, I guess you can say. Like I don't know, maybe because I do actually think this is a natural thing. It has to do with personality here. I think that was the reason why I wasn't really affected a lot, and I feel like my ego wasn't like, I didn't feel like my self-esteem has completely plummeted because of this one singular failure experience. Because I didn't really, I don't want to say I didn't see so much significance in that, because I didn't place my worth in that. And I could also see that I was like talented in other things as well, and like creative. I'm a creative person, and I could see all the qualities. Like when it first happened and I realized that was a moment of failure, I just feel like there was just like an influx of like, when like inner voice that talks to you about like you have this inner voice that's trying to soothe you in stressful situations. I feel like in that moment, all I could think of in that very moment in time was everything I'm good at, everything I'm talented at, my natural abilities. So I didn't directly correlate that to my self-esteem, and I didn't let it shake me down. Like obviously, yes, I'm human. I did have emotional responses. Like at some point I think I kind of cried about it, because I needed to just because I did just have to release all the emotional tension that I felt at the moment, because that's how you kind of free yourself from the tension of the moment. You kind of like free yourself by letting all those emotions go, so you can just move on. Now I feel like I'm gonna have to come to a conclusion here about what I've kind of learned, especially from my experience specifically, and what I've learned about ego, self, and the role, and then like failure, and then the role that plays into those individual aspects of self, which is, it's still kind of the same thing. To me, it's distinct and it's different, because when you're talking about ego, you're talking about something that is kind of like external to you in a way, where you can have external things that feed into that can increase how much ego you get, and how intense it feels, and how high it feels, right? Whereas self is like the things that make you who you are, like your behaviors, your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, all of that thing, and your self-esteem. And then this aspect of like failure and how it kind of like affects those individual things. To me, I feel like the way we're kind of gonna have to conclude it is to find or come to a conclusion in a positive way, or like, to me, I just kind of want to draw up a positive conclusion from it. What positive conclusion can we draw? And I feel like the thing about failure is that it challenges every single belief that you've had about how your ego works and how your self-esteem works, and the way failure just kind of like humbles you in a bit. It puts you, like, it puts some perspective for you. It really takes you back a notch. Like, it really takes you back a bit, puts you in a state where you have to analyze everything all over again. You have to kind of analyze like the meaning of, like, it could go from, it's even on spectrum. You could go from a spectrum of like analyzing the meanings of life to analyzing the way that you feel in this very moment, and then your self-esteem and your confidence and how you actually feel and deal with stuff every day. Like, it really just puts a break, stops you in your track, and then forces you in a way to kind of like analyze yourself again and really compartmentalize everything again, and really and what meaning you give to situations where you have to do a huge factory reset. Make sure that you're not easily shaken by external circumstances which you have no control over, which is unpredictable, and yet you still have to go through life in a healthy, sane way. Keep making sure that at least your mental health is regulated and you're in a way that you can still function and still live your life to the fullest. And so I've kind of like drawn the conclusion here. There is a correlation between those things. And one major thing that I've learned about failure, especially in particular, that I kind of said this in the beginning, is humbling. It forces you to introspect on everything in your life and really come to reset everything. I feel like everyone experiences this emotion, this thing called failure, in so many different ways and different aspects. Some are more painful than others, some are more sensitive than others, but also it still has the same effect. It still makes you question the same things. It still brings for the same type of questions across the board. The emotional reaction it brings out of you is still the same across the boards. Again, it might come up in sensitive aspect of life for some people, in relationships, and I mean in education, that are different aspects. Like, it's a lot, and it can even be something more niche as well. So that's a different scenario, but it brings forward the same questions, and it leaves you in the same position where you have to figure out your personal meaning in life, like your personal meaning of life, and how you're going to run your life and govern your life and take responsibilities for your actions and consequences of things. It still brings forth the same question over and over again. How does it affect your ego? What role does your ego play? Is it important? Is it less important? And then, like, what's the sensitive aspect of self? Your self-esteem, your self-worth. What does it have to say? Does it completely bring down your self-esteem? Does it completely deplete it? And if it does, then why? And what can you do to raise up your self-esteem where it's like all these unpredictable experiences doesn't affect you anymore? To that point where it doesn't affect you anymore. You analyze it, which one is vague, which one is more important, which one is sensitive, which one is vital to your survival as a healthy human being, and what role does it play? How does it humble you? What do you learn from it? Are they mistakes? Are they things that do you need to be taken back by it? And when it does happen, how do you regulate it? Do you know what I'm saying? I feel like it just brings out those fundamental questions that you have to figure out, because you are the philosopher of your life at the end of the day, and you kind of have to think it through. Because if you don't and you avoid it, it's like you're suppressing something inside. But I feel like you're smart enough to know that it's not a great idea to suppress emotions. The fact that you're even watching this right now is a great sign that you have an incredible mind, great intellect. Like, you're here right now and you're contemplating this thing, and you see this as an important topic to discuss, which is great. It's a great discourse, and we can't escape it as well. In some way, shape, or form, it always circles back to this specific discourse again, where you have to contemplate, what is the role of failure? How do you handle failure? How do you manage it? How do you overcome it? And what role does that play when it comes to your ego and self? I feel like I'm being philosophical in this video, but life is kind of, coming up with your own theories and kind of Being your own philosopher, being the philosopher of your life. We all are doing that right now. We all are making meanings, and every, you could say everything is like social construct. I don't subscribe to that. I believe that everything is a social construct. I just think that there's just certain situations that you go through that you kind of find it meaningless in a way. I don't know, whatever. But that is the main focal points of this video, is what role does it play? And I really want to hear your discussions. I really want to hear your thoughts on this and your opinions of this, because I want to hear a diverse perspective other than just my own. I feel like I'm just sharing this because I just want to bring up the conversation and kind of bring awareness to this, so that at least I can hear like a diverse perspective on this. And I really do want to hear your perspective on this when it comes to this topic. So drop your comments down below. I really want to read them. I am interested in learning for myself. I want to hear different perspective. I don't just want to hear, I really want to gain insight and wisdom. So if you have more thoughts and opinions on this, and if you feel like this kind of sparked something and sparked something in you that you want to have a conversation about this and you want to talk about this, just leave it down in the comments. That's what the comments are for. I talked about this. It's so complex. It comes up in different, there's nuances to this. I could talk about it in different ways, and I can shift and sift through different topics, but I kind of just want this to be the starting point, or the starting discussion about this topic. I think we're coming to the end of the video. I'm super glad. I'm so happy that I did this. This is why I'm so grateful to have a YouTube channel. So yeah, this has been incredible. I'm super grateful. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.